If preseason means anything, Paolo Banchero is set to take a major leap. I'll explain why today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is October 10th. It will be October 11th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can always follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, since we are 2/3 of the way through our preseason games for the Magic, let's take stock of what we've learned so far, who has stood out, and what that means for the season ahead. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's great Locked On podcasts covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We all have spent this offseason defending Paolo Banchero at every turn. Everybody's wanted a piece of Paolo. Everybody's tried to poke holes in the balloon of hype that is Paolo Banchero. I don't know why. I don't get why we can't just enjoy nice young players and let them grow, but we live in such a immediate gratification society that if you aren't out of the box one of the elite players in the league, well, you're a bum, or you're too inefficient, or you're not the guy to lead you to a championship. Well, guess what? The Orlando Magic have become a playoff team in 2 years, and Paolo Banchero is a big reason why. You just have to watch the games to understand that, even if the analytics don't always love him. Having said that, those criticisms, the talk about his inefficiency, the turnovers, some of those issues, those criticisms are valid. They are areas that he has to improve on, and areas that will determine what his ultimate ceiling is. My frustration with the critics is not that the criticism exists. It exists. It should exist. There are issues that he has to clean up. My criticism or my frustration, at least, with those criticisms is that my issue with those criticisms is that you're not giving him time to correct these errors. You're not giving him the time, the grace, the ability to step up his game and prove to you that he is one of the best players in the NBA, or that he can be. It seems like everyone was ready to make conclusions. Preseason is what it is. Let's not pretend otherwise. It is interesting, it is information, it is good, but it is not everything. Paolo Banchero struggled a ton in preseason last year. This year, though, has been different. This year, the vibe around Paolo has been a little bit different. Maybe last year he needed some time to turn back on the part of his brain that was, I'm the superstar instead of I'm the role player, like he was for the U.S. team in the FIBA World Cup. But this year has felt very different, because while there's a lot to talk about what this Magic team needs to do to improve, especially on the offensive end, Banchero has seemingly played with more purpose, with more intention, with more delivery, with more deliberateness. Paolo Banchero, so far at least, looks like a very different player, a player who is in control of himself, who is in control of what he wants to do, where he wants to go, and how he will attack each of these teams. Banchero, maybe he has not put up the gaudiest stats, but he looks like someone who understands what this preseason is getting what he needs out of it, and is moving on from there. Doesn't need to do much more than that. The numbers are interesting. Against New Orleans, he scored 15 points on 5 for 7 shooting, including 4 for 6 from the foul line and 1 for 2 from 3. Had 2 turnovers. Turnovers are still an issue. Against San Antonio, he had only 6 points on 3 for 6 shooting. Didn't take a 3. Didn't take a free throw. but 6 rebounds and 7 assists, had 3 turnovers. We will recognize that that's still an area to improve on. But in each one of those games, Paolo looked in control. In each one of those games, Paolo treated it like a preseason game and still made this outsized impact, this huge impact on the game itself. Paolo Banchero is the key to the whole project. Like, we could pretend otherwise, we could dance around the subject, but those critics are right. The Magic are going to go as far as Paolo Banchero can take them. And through 2 of the 3 preseason games the Magic are going to play, because Friday's game, remember, was canceled. Hope everyone made it through the storm well. As much as we want to talk about everything else, how good Paolo Banchero is going to determine how good this Magic team ultimately is. It's going to determine just what this Magic team can accomplish in the bigger picture of things. It's asking a lot, obviously. It's saying a lot. But Banchero has shown us in 2 preseason games that there is another level to his game. Just like he showed us in the playoffs that there's another level to his game. While Paolo is not trying to score in the same way that perhaps he did in the playoffs, and certainly he will when the regular season begins, Banchero is not scoring at that level quite yet. But he's playing under control. He's more purposeful with his movements. He is reading double teams and feeling double teams like the ones the Spurs and the Pelicans both sent at him endlessly in a preseason game, and making the right reads and the right decisions. Ultimately, that's where Paolo has to take that next step and take that big evolution. He has to be a great playmaker, a great decision maker. There's a lot on his plate, fair or not. And the Magic are expecting him to take a huge leap. I would say this. Wednesday night's game against the Spurs, he only scored 6 points. But you could see his fingerprints all over the game. And to me, that's the definition of a superstar player. We know he can score. We know he can put the ball in the basket. We saw him split that double team and get to the basket for a dunk on Wednesday. We know that is in his bag. We saw on Monday afternoon how he can hit jumpers over the defense and be just a general nuisance. We all saw it. We all know what he's capable of. But now comes the tricky part. Now comes the difficult part. Now comes the part where Paolo has to take that next evolution, take that next step. Now comes the part where Paolo has to put all those pieces together with efficiency. And that's what he did Wednesday night. I am so impressed by what he did Wednesday night because it was simple, quick passes. It was a dribble to see where the defense was going to come and grab him and then making the right play. Honestly, the best play he's made all preseason was that bounce pass to Jett Howard for a dunk. I watched that play again. I did a video on my Patreon page about it. That'll be up on Friday morning. Banchero draws a double team, gets a third guy there. He sees him jump, waits, and then feathers that bounce pass in. Makes him commit, and then makes the right play and the right read. And it's a heck of a play. Paolo's had a few of those already this year. And obviously, Paolo led the team in assists last year with about 5 per game. If he can become a more consistent triple-double threat, which I don't think is impossible, I think he can be a 6 or 7 assist guy. In addition to a 25, 26, 27, 28 point per game guy. In addition to a 6, 7, 8 rebound per game guy. Paolo can be the complete package. It's now just about proving it over and over and over again. And that's what he did. And that's what he's been doing in this preseason. Giving us a hint of that next level. It's exciting to see because that's how the Magic reach their next level too. Yes, Franz needs to have a better showing and needs to get himself right. And there's a lot of turnovers to clean up. But Paolo's looked good. And that, honestly, Paolo's not just looked good. He's looked evolved. And that's how this team reaches its next stage. That's how this team evolves too. And that should be very exciting for Magic fans to face. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about Jett Howard and his breakthrough. We'll talk about his breakthrough again, what that means for the Magic, and why it's important coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Storm has passed. Hope everyone made it through the storm okay. Now we got to figure out how to pick up the pieces and hopefully very, very soon get back to normal lives. I know that we were very fortunate here in Central Florida. But if you're looking to get out this weekend and enjoy something, UCF's still scheduled to play Cincinnati. Orlando City, I believe, is still scheduled to play here this weekend. The Pride will have their playoffs. There's a lot going on here in the City Beautiful very, very soon. And if you want tickets to any of those great events or any of the shows at the Dr. Phillips Center, Gametime has you covered. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks will filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've used Gametime before to go to events, whether it's the Tampa Bay Rays in St. Petersburg. Hopefully everyone in St. Pete is okay. Crazy images out of there. I've used them to check tickets for shows and events here in Central Florida. And they are so convenient. They give you that digital panoramic view of your seats so you know what the stage is going to look like. They give you so many great features and options. Plus, your tickets are covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. I actually had a problem with the MLB app with tickets that I bought on Gametime. Gametime texted me the tickets, made sure I had them on my phone. It was stressful, but they made that stress go completely away. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Again, I don't want to make light of what's going on here in Central Florida. We are on the backside of Hurricane Milton. Luckily, I think Central Florida and Orlando especially was really spared. The storm considerably weakened once it hit land. But obviously, our thoughts are with those in the Bay Area, on the Gulf Coast, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Tampa, St. Petersburg. Hopefully, hopefully damage was minimal, but obviously a very devastating storm on the coast of Florida here. And hopefully, again, everyone is picking up the pieces. And hopefully, if you're listening from those areas, I can give you 30 minutes of respite. I don't mean to bring that back up, but I do want to acknowledge what's going on here in my home in Florida, as well as Central Florida. But let's move on. Let's get back to it. Our preseason standouts, as now the Magic have played 2 of their 3 preseason games. We have 2 games to give us some data and make us think, that's something interesting. Is that something that's going to last? Is it something permanent? Is it something fleeting? Who knows? And obviously today, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but today, everybody in Magic fandom has been buzzing about Jett Howard. Jett Howard had a standout game. 19 points, 3 for 7 shooting from 3, 6 for 10 overall, 4 for 4 from the foul line, had a 4-point play. Again, team high 19 points for the Magic. He had an outstanding game, plain and simple, an outstanding game. And the kind of game that shows this is why you draft him. This is why he's on the team. Jett Howard was drafted to be a volume shooter. That's what he did in college. That's what he did at Michigan. That's his value. And the Magic obviously understood that he was a young player that needed some refinement. They gave him a gap year. They weren't going to have a lot of playing time for him. They gave him that gap year in Osceola. And look, he seemed to use it very well. His defense, while still needing improvement, is a lot better. And that's ultimately what's going to keep him on the floor. But his 3-point shooting is what got him in the league. At the end of the day, you got to do what got you in the league. And Jett Howard is a potentially elite 3-point shooter. That's what the Magic are banking on. That's why the Magic were willing to wait on him, even if he wasn't ready, and frankly, overdraft him. Again, I did not even have him on my board when the Magic took him at number 11 or 12 last year. They added him, and it's worked out it's looked pretty good so far. Of course, it's just preseason, but Howard did nothing in the game on Wednesday. And I'm not diminishing what Howard did, because At the end of the day, it's better to know someone can do something than they can't. I'd rather see a player score 50 points in a summer league game and say, like, okay, I know you can do that now. Like, yes, we have to understand the context, but it's better to see a guy do something crazy in a preseason game than say, oh, he's really struggling. He doesn't look like he's ready. Jett Howard doesn't have that issue. Jett Howard, you could stick him into that role and feel, okay, we know he can handle it at this level. Let's step the level up a little bit. Instead of, oh, he's struggling. He's 3 for 10 or 3 for 20 or whatever it is from 3, and it's just not clicking. A guy struggling, again, I say this about Summer League all the time. Summer League's about figuring out who can't play more than who can play. Same thing with preseason. We're going to learn a little bit. We're going to take what we can. We're going to jot some notes down, but it's preseason still. We got to understand that context. And so what Jett Howard did on Wednesday, though, completely replicable. And again, the fact that he's playing with the starters are feeding him the ball. They trust him, and he delivered. That's going to go a long way to getting him playing time. That's going to go a long way to earning trust with the coaches and his teammates, most importantly. Remember, the Magic aren't a terrible shooting team. They were 15th in the league in three-point percentage after January 1st. A lot of it's just about trust. And ultimately, this is what the Magic are looking for from their shooters. It's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the corner, maybe drawing someone closer to them to give Paolo that extra inch, to get that extra half step he needs to get to the basket. It's about gravity. And so this is why Jett and Caleb and Tristan da Silva and all the young shooters the Magic have, and Gary Harris, I know fans aren't high on Gary Harris still, but it's why these shooters are important. They're there to make Paolo and Franz's life easier. They are there to make a defender stand a half step closer to them so that that's an extra foot of room for the drivers to get through. Or if they're going to collapse the paint like they did Wednesday night, they have shooters surrounding those players to kick out. Offense isn't hard. Like, as much as the Magic make it difficult, offense is not hard. It's about creating tension within the defense. It's about forcing defenders to make impossible choices, to make difficult decisions, and making it hard for them to cover those decisions. What the Magic did, or what the Magic have done now, is they've made it hard for these decisions to get made. Because if you have shooters like Jett Howard, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, we haven't really seen Kentavious Caldwell-Pope yet. He played in the preseason game on Monday, only took 2 3-pointers. It was a disjointed offensive effort. I'm not reading too much into that game. But what Jett Howard did is showed us what that spacing is. And again, spacing's been such a big buzzword for the Magic during training camp. They want proper spacing to give their shooters a chance. Because the Spurs didn't respect Jett Howard as a shooter. Plain and simple. You can go back, look at all of his 3-point shots, watch Jett Howard's man completely ignore him. And I make this point a lot. Shooting is not about your ability to actually make 3-point shots. That is a value in shooting, but that's not the value in shooting. The value in shooting is whether the defense thinks you can make 3-point shots. It's whether the defense is willing to say, I can't leave this person, or I'm going to have to make a choice. Am I going to give up the 3 or give up the drive? And right now, everybody defends the Magic saying, we're going to give up the drive. We're going to let our defense sag into the paint and trust that we can contest 3-point shots because passes won't be on target, or that's just not a quality shooter. And if someone like Jalen Suggs last year, all of last year, if Jalen Suggs beats us because he made 3 of 5 3-pointers or 4 of 7 or whatever the case may be, that's a gamble they're willing to live with. Well, you play the elite teams. You play the Boston Celtics. You got to pick which shooter you want to let shoot because they all can shoot. You play the Dallas Mavericks, you got to figure out, am I going to let Luka beat us, or I'm going to let Kyrie beat us, or I'm going to let those shooters beat us? It's these kind of compromises that make for the elite teams. And the Magic, they're not elite at it yet, but the crux of the Magic's offense is we're going to put pressure on the rim. we're going to get everybody downhill. We're going to get our players downhill to the basket, use our size and our passing and our versatility to create open looks. And everyone right now is like, okay, they do a really good job putting pressure on the rim, but if they try to pass out to the 3-point line, that's a win for us. It's okay if they go to the line a little bit. It's okay if Paolo gets to the basket or settles for mid-range jumpers because they can't shoot enough. They're not going to shoot efficiently enough on those shots to beat us. Well, now you add in a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, a 40% three-point shooter, one of the best 3-and-D players in the league. Now that defender, that low-man defender, can't leave KCP in the corner because if Paolo finds him in the corner, KCP is going to make that shot. Or now you have Jett Howard, an elite shooting prospect who's now shown in a preseason game, granted, that he can make you pay for leaving him open. Now you got Jalen Suggs, maybe another year confident as a spot-up three-point shooter. Now you got Gary Harris. Now you got Caleb Houston if he can be more consistent as a spot-up shooter. Now you've got some weapons. And assuming Franz Wagner's shot comes around, I know he's 0 for 4 to start the preseason. The Magic now have a few more weapons to ease the pressure and give outlets when Paolo Banchero is Paolo Banchero. Because here's the thing. You go back and watch that tape. Every time Paolo Banchero's in the paint, there are 3 guys surrounding him. That means there's essentially 2 players open. And like I said, it's about Paolo making that decision of who to pass to. Whether it's kicking back out to Jalen Suggs, who then fires it to Jett Howard in the corner. Whether it's finding Jett Howard on that cut. Whether it's kicking out back out to Jett Howard after an offensive rebound like he did in that game. As Paolo evolves, he needs his shooters to evolve with him. And that's why Wednesday night was so exciting. I know the Magic lost. They didn't lose because of their stars. That's why Wednesday night was so exciting. Because Jett Howard showed us what this offense looks like with a knockdown shooter like him. And he delivered. He made the shots. I don't let me go wrong. Making shots is important. And that's huge. That's confidence for the team. That's confidence that, yeah, this offense might be a little bit better. Because say Paolo plays his normal minutes. He played only 17 and a half minutes on Wednesday. Eventually, the Spurs would have to shift their defense. Eventually, the Spurs would have to say, okay, we can't keep giving up Jett Howard threes. Now Paolo can get to the basket. Now Paolo can get to his spots and hit his mid-range jumpers. Now Paolo can get to the line. Now he can feed Franz on cuts. Now that space opens up for something different. That's the power of what Jett Howard did on Wednesday night. And we'll see if that carries over into the next game and whether he has earned a spot in this team's rotation. But the Magic have other players that can do very similar to what he did, and that's exciting. Let's talk about some other preseason standouts. I have 2 more I want to get to. I talked about one yesterday, but I want to make sure I reiterate it. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, it's Thursday night. NFL season, NFL week is right around the corner. College football this weekend. My Northwestern Wildcats playing on a Friday night against Maryland with the Magic game canceled. I actually get to watch it live. UCF down at the Bounce House against Cincinnati. Should be a good time with the Knights favorite, I believe by 3.5 points. And if you want to get in on the action to get a big return to the NFL season, to the NBA season, to whatever sport you're interested in, then you got to check out FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel already has so many great offers for the NBA season, including the Magic at over/under 47.5 wins, the Magic at -140 to win the Southeast Division, I believe plus 5,000 to win the Eastern Conference outright. And if you're really, really excited, the Magic are 1-point underdogs at Miami for opening night in just 2 weeks. FanDuel has so many great offers, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. There is 2 more standouts I think we got to talk about from these first 2 preseason games. Again, 2 games, 2 preseason games at that. Really small sample size. Let's not overreact to things. Let's not go crazy. We've hit a lot of these topics before, but again, the Magic only have one more preseason game left now. They wanted to have the 2 weekend games. So they are, one game left before it's real. The Magic, I will report, the Magic are flying home Friday. They're off on Friday. They'll practice again Saturday. So they got a week of practice. There's a lot of time to correct these things. Again, the vibe that I'm getting watching these games is this team knows how to get itself ready. Like the turnover stuff, not super concerned about at this point. Even some of the offensive, unfluidity, not super concerned with. I do believe this team they've shown enough pockets to me to be like, okay, this team knows what they're doing, especially the way that they played from Wednesday to Monday. They got better between the 2 preseason games. And that's a big thing for me, is to say, are you getting better as the preseason goes on? Are you improving with each preseason game? I think the Magic really did. I really, really love what the Magic did in Wednesday's game. I am I think I said this after Monday's game. The Magic didn't do anything Monday to make us really concerned, but they didn't do anything to make us over the moon happy. Wednesday, I'm over the moon happy. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing a lot of stuff that I really, really like. So I want to see them do it again, and I want to see them get better next Friday against the Sixers. But there's 2 more players I feel like I need to mention. You see one on the rundown here, but I got to mention Goga Bitadze. Stepped into the role with Wendell Carter out on Wednesday. Just really solid. That dude is a scavenger. I respect scavengers. That's how I play. I get my offensive rebounds. I get my putbacks. Even though he is still a bit limited offensively, he knows what he's really good at. And you have to appreciate that. I love guys who know what they're good at and just deliver what they're good at. He offensive rebounds really well. He's probably the best offensive rebounder on the team. Gets putbacks, doesn't try to do too much. Great timing on blocks. Had a really fantastic game on Wednesday. But the guy that's really stood out to me so far is Anthony Black. He's not scoring a ton. He is scoring a lot. He had 9 points against the Pelicans on 3 for 6 shooting, over 2 from 3. But 3 for 6 shooting, 4 assists in that game. Follow that up Wednesday with 11 points, 6 rebounds, only 1 assist, 3 for 5 shooting. 1 for 1 on threes, which is nice. 4 for 5 from the foul line, which is also very nice. Black, to me, though, it's not about his counting stats, though. To me, there is a lot more confidence in the way that he's playing with the ball in his hands. I think there's still a little bit of a struggle with him to control his pace. He works a lot better at a faster pace and getting out in the open court. But you can tell that he has an emphasis on getting downhill, getting to the basket, and not being too out of control. And his change of pace, I feel like, is a lot better. And, while he's not finishing at the rim perfectly quite yet, there's definitely a confidence and a desire to be more assertive and be more aggressive in a way that he wasn't last year. Now, we'll see how much that changes in the regular season. I think the Magic prefer to have Cole Anthony play off the ball. I think they feel like they can get more out of his shooting that way. I thought Cole really struggled as the kind of point guard in the point guard role on Wednesday. I think he was guarded by Stephon Castle a lot, and Stephon Castle is a great defender for a rookie. But, I would put it this way with Cole, and Cole has been okay in the preseason. He was good on Monday, well, not as good on Wednesday. Wednesday was the first time in a while where I felt like Cole is the smallest player on the floor. And again, he plays bigger than he is. He rebounds well. I think he's a pesky defender. He's not a great defender, but he makes the most of what he has. Wednesday was the first time I was he's definitely the smallest guy on the floor, and you can tell, and he's struggling to find his way, to be consistent in that way. So I really I'm not worried about Cole. I think he knows how to handle himself. He gets the hot potato shots a lot. So I don't freak out about his field goal percentages. But what I really, really like what I'm seeing is Anthony Black. He's told us really since Summer League that his goal is to play off of 2 feet a little bit more. And to me, that means he wants to A, have the control, the jump stop, and B, the explosiveness to finish at the rim. That's kind of what I see at that. It's both. It's to say he is always got his feet under him. He's playing fast, but patient. And while I don't think he's all the way there yet, I think he still has to learn how to control some of that. he's looked a lot better and a lot more confident heading into his second year. I do think the Magic see really big things from him this year and see big things from him coming off the bench for this team this year. And I think they do believe he's going to play a pretty big role in this game. I think AB has done a really great job establishing himself here in the early part of the preseason. And again, it's not about showing us who you are fully yet, because, roles are a little bit different in the preseason. You're not seeing fully the lineups and the rotations that we're going to see in the regular season. But it's about showing us what you're capable of and hints of what you can be. And we've seen pretty good hints of what AB is going to be this year for this team. And again, there's still a long way to go. There's still a lot of development for him. They're still going to need more from him as we get deeper and deep as we get into the regular season. But I've been really impressed with AB as a point guard, taking on more of that responsibility and really embracing that part of his role. I think there's a lot of positive to take from him. And again, like through these first 2 preseason games, again, the Magic will only play 3. So we have a lot of the data we're going to have through these 2 preseason games. I do think the Magic have progressed most importantly. I think they've shown us their capability on defense. And I think the Magic know they have that reserve. I don't think, and it's not that they're not playing hard, but I would describe it as they're just giving second efforts. And to be an elite defense, you need to give third and fourth efforts. They did that a little bit Wednesday. And like Wednesday, I saw a peak of the defense. I was like, okay, defense is there. They know what they're doing. They're not showing their cards yet. They're going to keep some of those cards close to the vest. Offensively, I don't think we have a good feel yet for how this team's going to run offensively. I think it can still be a little stagnant and a little too ISO focused. I think the Magic are still going to have to work to find ways to create advantages. But it's still very much based on decision-making from Paolo and Franz, especially from Paolo. And Paolo has generally made good decisions. Jalen Suggs, that experiment's been hit or miss, missed on Monday, hit a little bit more on Wednesday. But I do think the Magic have someone in reserve. I don't think they're showing their full hand quite yet. I don't think they're quite telling us everything they're going to do and everything they're doing differently on offense. I think we're getting like a shell or a base offense and not really getting deep into what this team's going to do, which is, exciting to see. I think there is more in reserve on both ends of the floor. And I think that's exciting. Now, does that mean the Magic are about to have a 4-seed type year? I don't think we can say that quite yet. I don't think we've seen that out of them yet, at least in preseason, but I think they'll be fine. I would put it that way. I think I think they've looked good enough to say like, okay, they're where they were last year. They're still building up to it, but they're doing everything that they need to do. And again, so much is on Paolo's shoulders, and we've seen some growth from some other young players that should be really exciting and really enticing as we get into the regular season, which again, only 2 weeks away at this point, 2 weeks from last Wednesday. So 10 days from now, roughly, we'll see the Magic in action in Miami. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of my podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, you can check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Tomorrow, Friday morning, I have a video going up breaking down how Jett Howard had his big game and why it was really all about Paolo Banchero and what he did. Highlighting more of what we talked about today with some video clips as well. You can check that out tomorrow on my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub. Check in around noon. I'll have that post available for purchase individually if you don't want to subscribe fully, which you really should. I think it's a good value. Maybe I hope you do too. Thank you again, as always, for your support. Before we move forward, I hope everyone listening in Central Florida made it through the storm okay with minimal damage. I think we were really lucky here in Orlando and Central Florida. Of course, we are thinking about our friends on the west coast of Florida and the Gulf Coast, Tampa, St. Pete, Fort Myers, Sarasota. They got hit really hard by a very, very nasty storm, took the brunt of force of this storm. But hopefully you all made it through too. And hopefully if you're listening to this, gives you just a little bit of respite to hear some talk about the Magic through, what's obviously a difficult and very, 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 very hard time here in Florida. Thankfully, there are no storms in the offing yet. But we have hurricane season lasting at least for another month until the end of November. So always be prepared, always be ready. Now that you're done listening to me yammer on, you can now make Locked On Fantasy Basketball your next listen. Become a fantasy basketball expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Josh Lloyd. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll hear from the Magic over the weekend. Now that they'll be back in Orlando, finally, we'll get an update on what they thought of their first 2 preseason games and so much more next week as we gear up for the final week of preseason, heading into the regular season. But until then, have a great weekend. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Phil Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.